Hey, friends and family, and hopefully some of my fellow warriors will see this. I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time, and I'm finally getting around to it. Doing a lot of videoing for the church and doing Pastor Alex's sermons, so getting a lot of practice in, so I thought I'd add this. Every now and then I get my picture out on Facebook of me, and the same thing happens every single time. I get several texts and phone calls. Hey, Rick, you okay? And I'd go into an explanation, and the easy explanation is yes and no. Many of you already know, and I've been posting a little bit more about what I'm going through. I got hit with an autoimmune disease called scleroderma. It started about November of 2017. And the first thing I want to tell you guys is that this is not, you're going to hear some of what I'm going through, and I'm going to be pretty detailed about it, but this is not an oh, woe is me video. I want to create this video to create motivation within you. I want to inspire some people. I just really want you to know that you do not want an autoimmune disease. It's terrible to have, and I'm going to go into pretty good detail. Honestly, to hopefully scare you a little bit and to motivate you to pay attention to your health. It's so important to me that I want to make this video. It's not for me, it's for you, because I'm having such a hard time. I don't want anybody to go through what I'm going through. So let me go into some details about scleroderma. If you literally translate the Latin, it means tight skin, which is kind of ridiculous, because if it was just tight skin, I'd no big deal. But what it is it's exactly what it does is my body, of course, as any autoimmune, is attacking itself. And I have too much collagen being deposited throughout my soft tissue. That's internally and externally. My skin is tight, yes, but also it affects your internal organs. And as you could see, and what the picture generated is, it largely affected my digestive system. And it's been very hard for me to eat. And as far as muscles and tendons, the best way I can describe it is, if you know those that gym equipment that you can regulate the weight with rubber bands, that's kind of what it's like living in my body. Not only has my muscle just been completely removed from my body, but my tendons and the skin itself are tight. So, just to lift my arms, this is as far as I can lift my arms. And, my legs were impacted. I've got polymyositis is what they call it. My legs are extremely weak. Earlier, about a month or two ago, if I fell on a flat surface and there was nothing around me to pick myself up on with my hands, I couldn't get up off the floor. I tried taking a bath early on, and it took me a half an hour to get out of the bathtub. It's ridiculous. It's a bad disease. And when the doctors were first telling me about it, they described it as a chronic, progressive, degenerative disease. And it was scary. To me, it was like somebody telling me that you've got cancer, and I was pretty convinced that I was going to be dying. And as a matter of fact, multiple myeloma did come into the picture. Some of my blood tests came back, but I guess sometimes you get some of the same readings with the autoimmune as you do with cancer, so that turned out to be okay. So I was very glad about that. I'm very weak. I'm weak throughout. I'm having to think about it a little bit because I've been treating myself, and I'm going to get into that in pretty good detail. But you know, a 10-year-old girl could probably wrestle me and beat me up right now. It's pathetic. You know, I had my sister, you know, when I was living with her for a little while, she had to open up jars for me, and you know, I couldn't break down a box from Amazon, and just ridiculous things that you would not believe. You know, and those of you that know me and see me in person, you know, army trained, taekwondo, martial arts. You know, I was 280 pounds at my heaviest, and you know, yeah, there's fat, of course, but there was a lot of underlying muscle as well. So people that have seen me and have been around me knew that. And at my lowest, about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I went down to 145. And honestly, I don't even remember when I was 145. When I left for the Army after high school, I was about 165, 170. And then at the end of my tour, I was about 220. So that's my goal weight now, is to get back to 190, and between 190 and 220 would be an ideal weight. And thank God I'm going that way. I wanted to go into briefly what preceded this autoimmune, because I think that's important. And this is where I want to motivate you guys. Before this disease hit, the first thing is that I was exposed to a lot of diesel fuel. In the Army, I was with the 63rd Armor, and we were right next to the tank area. So, and I was out on the battlefield. I was at Fort Irwin, and Fort Irwin at the time was desert warfare, large-scale desert warfare. So Humvees, tanks, you name it, it was out there. And I was exposed to a lot of that diesel fuel. So that may have some of it. But what I thought impacted it more was I was on a lot of ibuprofen. My hips, actually my left hip has been replaced because of rheumatoid arthritis. At the time, my right hip was also diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I'll get into it a little bit more, but now my right hip is fine because of what I've been doing. I was on PPIs, proton pump inhibitors. If you guys don't know what that is, it's you know, antacids, antacids. It's what do you call it? You know, Mazaprol and all those antacids. Those are horrible for you. Had a lot of sugar in my diet, just, you know, eating crap in general. And then November 2017 were my first symptoms, and as a lot of you know that, you know me personally, I had a very stressful divorce during that time, and all of those things combined, you know, just it beat my body, and I got hit with the autoimmune. Let me go into God's intervention on this. As many of you know, I am a man of faith. God is number one in my life. I received Christ back when I was 7, but you know, I lived my life as best as I could. But my relationship, it began to grow with God in 2012, and in 2016 and 17, it went in earnest. You know, it's the most important thing. My relationship with God and Jesus Christ is the most important thing in my life. And He has definitely been involved. There is no doubt in my mind that God has intervened on my behalf on this disease. There's so many factors. One in particular, because I don't want to make this too long of a video, but one small factor, just a small factor of this, was the doctor and how I've educated myself on how to treat this disease. The doctor was an interesting story because I'm with the VA. All my medical care is with the VA. But the disease was so bad, I started researching, for specialists. I found a specialist in Palo Alto. Her name was Dr. Lorinda Chung. And she actually specializes in scleroderma at Stanford University in Palo Alto. And this is where I just know God intervenes, because He allowed me to find her. And not only that, Dr. Chung also practices, and I found out just recently that she's the head of all the rheumatologists for the VA. So I was able to schedule appointments with her through the VA, so it didn't cost me, extra to see Dr. Chung. Now here's where it gets interesting even further. Dr. Chung is participating in a clinical study on a new drug specifically for scleroderma. So when she saw me at the VA in Palo Alto, she invited me to participate, and I of course did. And I've been doing that for a year. It's a new, I don't think I'm allowed to say the name yet, but it's a new CBD based drug. I've been on, it's a double-blind study, so I don't know if I'm on the actual drug or a placebo, but I will tell you that I've had some loosening of the skin already and some more mobility. So she and I both feel that I'm probably on the small 5 milligram dose. But, and ironically, my last appointment was to get on the actual drug itself and the correct dosage. That appointment was canceled because of this COVID virus, so I'm a little upset about that. But they told me to go get the lab that was necessary done at the VA, so I did that. So I'm waiting to hear from them that possibly they will be able to mail me the drug. That's a lot of God's intervention, and the other half of it is, and the only reason I decided to do that clinical study was because it was a CBD based study, and CBD is a natural it's a natural drug. So I've been studying nutrition. I got heavily into nutrition. God put the right people in my life that opened my eyes on fighting chronic disease, any chronic disease, with nutrition. So naturally, when I went to doctors, the first thing they did is they threw a bunch of drugs at me, and as I consider myself naive at the time, I just took those immunosuppressants. I took the steroids, and whatever other drugs they threw at me, I took them, and I went into literally a living nightmare. I had daymares, I had nightmares, I had just out-of-body experiences. It was just awful, and my body did not like it at all. So I don't even remember how long I took the drugs, but when I got into doing it nutritionally, I was much happier. Just to tell you briefly what I did is I started juicing, or not juicing, I'm sorry, I'm blending celery, cucumber, a bunch of other fruits, vegetables, mostly vegetables because fruits still have sugar. So I went on a total sugar diet. I had no sugar intake, and that included fruits for the first year or so. And after about the first month or two, I went off of drugs. And you can see the testimony of this with, I don't know if anybody's heard of Joe Cross, but Joe Cross is an Australian who was fat and overweight and dying. That's the name of his video, fat, overweight, and nearly dead. I think that's what the title is. I'll put a caption on here with the correct title. But he did the same thing, and he toured America. And as he did this juicing fast, he managed to get off the drugs and lost a lot of weight. He ran across another guy. He was morbidly obese with an autoimmune, and he stuck with it, lost over 200 pounds, and he managed to stop taking drugs for his autoimmune. So at first, I just want to cover this real quick. At first I was blending, but I have a an offset condition that comes with scleroderma called gastroparesis, and a long story short, my stomach basically just does not process food, or processes at a very, very slow rate. So what I found out about blending is that blending will not get rid of the non-soluble fiber. And non-soluble fiber, as everybody knows, your stomach has a difficult time processing that already. So my stomach, food would just sit in there for a day, maybe two. So I ended up juicing. So juicing, if anybody's watching this to get motivated on doing the nutritional thing, I highly recommend juicing. One of those cold, masculating blenders that they don't do the high speed. You want to avoid the juicers that do high heat and high RPMs. You want to do the slow ones or the cold blenders. So lately, I want to get into what I've been doing lately, because lately I've been having extraordinary success with, especially in my digestion. The biggest thing I believe is beets. I've been juicing beets. I have a beet supplement, and I have a beet pomegranate chew that I've been taking every day, all three of them. Well, I don't juice beets every day, but I take these supplements every day. And another thing with the scleroderma is my circulation. I get something called CREST, which is calcinosis. Calcinosis is deposits of calcium. I had it on my skin. That's been healing. CREST, that's the C. The R is the Raynaud's. Raynaud's phenomena is when it gets cold. For me, anywhere below 68, 67, I start to get really cold. My hands will get really cold. They'll turn purple. And what comes with that is you'll get these digital ulcers. And those are very painful. I do the computer a lot. I couldn't do any typing because of the tips of my fingers are full of digital ulcers. Taking out bottle caps, whatever, anything that will touch the tips of your fingers was nearly impossible because it was so painful. Since I've been taking beets, my circulation has been coming back. I'm getting warmer, so I'm really thrilled about that. To finish off CREST, the esophagus, the E is for esophageal motility. It's very hard for me to swallow. I told you about my stomach, but my esophagus has narrowed, so I have to chew thoroughly. I still can't eat without having some sort of fluid. I can eat a couple bites and then I'll have to wash it down because it gets stuck in my esophagus. S is, now I'm forgetting what S is. Let me get T. T is the Tang. I can't pronounce the word. I can see the word in my mind, but I get these broken blood vessels throughout my face. That's pretty much. I mean, there's a couple on my hand, but mostly they're on my face. I'll have to edit in here the S because I've forgotten what it is. I'll list CREST. I'll put it on my video and list out what S was and how it's affected me. Also, I'm doing frankincense. It's also known as boswellia. Boswellia frankincense. It's a phenomenal essential oil. I'm doing slippery elm bark. That's for my digestion. But the biggest thing that's helped me, and it's especially with my digestion, is kefir, or it's also called kefir. It's basically a fermented milk. It's like a yogurt consistency. It's a drinkable yogurt consistency, fermented milk, and it has 10 times the probiotics of yogurt. It's the best source of probiotics you can find anywhere. I started off with store-bought, and now I'm making my own. It's so easy to do. You just get the kefir or kefir grains. They call it grains. It looks like cottage cheese. You put it in a mason jar full of milk. and you just set it on the counter, let it ferment for 24 hours. Sometimes I do 48 because I like the tartness. It gets very tart. You can mix honey with it. You can do sugar. You don't want to really do sugar because that will kill the probiotics. But sometimes I'll mix it with monk fruit sugar, and it tastes really good. But I love kefir straight in the way I make it. You just get whole milk, organic whole milk. Put in the grains, like I said, like a tablespoon of grains. It's really easy. If anybody wants to know how to do this, I've got a lot of YouTube videos that I watched to learn how to do it. So I highly recommend kefir. Please pay attention to your health, you guys, especially if you're on PPIs. I think that was, and the ibuprofen, painkillers, things of that nature. If you're having to take PPIs, it is the first sign. 80% of your immune system, 80% of your immune is in your gut. You have got to take care of your gut. So I went on a full regimen, no GMOs, no glyphosate, no gluten. I didn't do dairy. The kefir is dairy, but the kefir, it processes the dairy, so it comes out with, you've heard of curds and whey. That's what happens when you do it with kefir. So I used to have problems drinking milk, but I don't have any problems with kefir, so it's fantastic. Please take care of yourself. Feel free to contact me if you want to know more details of what I've done to get back into health, because I went down to 145, like I said. I'm back up to 155 as of this morning. I'm eating a little more. I actually went down to We3 Bakery and picked up a country breakfast, which is a lot. But and of course I didn't eat it. I ate not even half of it. So, but take care of yourselves. I love you all. I miss you. I want to get out in the world again, and I'm steadily getting better and better. So God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.